This is a sub-loom for a Mazda FD RX7 IAT sensor. So one of my buyers slash friends, Jason Stamper out of North Carolina, he owns a yellow FD RX7, but he purchased a fast response IAT that needs a different connector than the original on the loom. So in this case, what we made was just a sub-loom here that would plug into the original harness, switching connector families to what this sensor needed, which was a LK2 or EV1. Now, of course, no factory engine harness on a Mazda FD had a DTM family connector here. So normally this end of the sub-loom would be the OEM mate to whatever was on the factory loom, right? Given the age of the vehicle, of these RX-7s, and also the brittleness of the factory looms at this point, instead of mating to an old brittle connector, I recommended that you just cut off the OEM IAT connector, right? Put on a socket side DTM two-way housing, so the plug housing, but they have socket terminals inside. Once that's on the original loom, then it'll plug right here into the pin side, so pin terminal but receptacle housing for the DTM two-way here. This thing's about 11 inches long. I believe the IAT sensor came with its own sub-loom, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, but we just thought we'd put together something a little bit nicer for him, a bit more heat resistant, given the fact that this is under the intake manifold, and I think temps get really hot there. So this has just got, of course, genuine LK2 EV1 parts there, genuine DTM parts here. These rubber boots are the ProWire USA ones that we stock and sell, and we do like. So a two-way DTM boot here. This is actually a two-way DT rubber boot that I prefer on the pin side housing. They're just a little bit larger, and they go over the pin side housing a little bit nicer than the other DTM two-way boot. They're just a little too tight, primarily because underneath this boot I have service loops underneath that boot. So same thing with the Pro 90 EV boot, which is here. There's also service loops inside of that boot. So but yeah, so this little 11-inch whip or whatnot, this will plug into the factory loom after he switches connectors. Switch from the EconoSeal style connector housing to an LK2 EV1 here. If at any point we ever needed to go back to the OEM style housing for an OEM, or I guess a sensor that takes an OEM housing, we could always just replace that DTM 2A. You would lose a little bit of length from the recrimping of the terminals, which would be the I guess at that point the second time new terminals would be put on. So you lose a little bit of length there, but either way, this sub-loom here should get him up and going for what he's got working on. So.